Hello everyone and welcome back to Monsters of the Mind. As always, I'm your host Mr.G. Today we're talking about what is quite possibly the most famous monster in all Greek mythology. Well, the species that includes the most famous monster. What are we talking about? Well, today we're talking about the snake-haired women known as Gorgons. Gorgon means dreadful. They were a technical species, as there were only 3 Gorgons and they were all sisters, but there are still more than one, so they were still technically a species. They are described as malevolent. Their lair was located somewhere in what most philosophers now think is Libya, and they come from Greek mythology. The Gorgons are always described as looking like ugly humanoid beings with snakes for hair, as well as bat-like wings on their backs. Although most depictions kind of forget that fact. Most accounts of Gorgons describe 3 sisters, Stheno, Ural, and the most famous Greek monster of all, Medusa. As for their origins, according to early sources, Medusa and her sisters were born as monsters to the primordial sea deities Phereces and Ceto, and they're actually the sisters of the other Greek snake woman, Echidna. Oh wait, what? Poseidon? Athena? Oh, right. Okay, so the other origin for Medusa is a lot more, messed up, and if you don't want to hear this part, then, skip until you no longer see the black screen. According to the more popular Medusa origin story, Medusa used to be a very beautiful woman. However, one day she was in the temple of Athena when the sea god Poseidon appeared and, sexually assaulted her. Afterwards, Athena ended up turning her and her sisters, for some reason, into hideous monsters. Some people say it was a punishment, which is really messed up, while others say that it was a defense mechanism to keep her safe from something like that ever happening again. Now, it should be noted that this is actually a more recent edition of the Gorgons' origin story. Before this, pretty much every source said that Medusa and her sisters were born as monsters. You see, this version was written by a man named Ovid, who was notable for the fact that he hated authority, and in his works he liked to rewrite older myths to make the gods seem as terrible as possible, especially Athena. Another example of him doing something like this is the myth of Arachne. In his version, Athena loses a weaving contest to Arachne and is so bitter about it that she turns her into a spider. But in the actual version, Arachne loses and is so distraught she ends up hanging herself before Athena saves her by turning her into a spider. So it's pretty clear that Ovid's version of Medusa was another example of him making the gods seem worse than they actually were. As for what the Gorgons did, it's said that they were so ugly that anyone who saw them directly would be so horrified that they would turn into stone. However, due to the fact that more modern depictions of Gorgons portray them as looking not that bad looking, instead of being so ugly you get petrified, people now just give Gorgons the ability to turn people into stone when they make eye contact with them. Anyway, one day the hero Perseus was sent on a quest to kill Medusa by his local king in an attempt to get him killed so he could marry his mom. In order to fight Medusa, Perseus was given a mirror shield that allowed him to see Medusa without directly looking at her. Using this shield, Perseus managed to decapitate Medusa. When her sisters found out, they attacked Perseus, but he managed to escape, whereupon he used her severed head to petrify Cetus and saved Andromeda. When he returned home, he used her head to petrify the evil king. Interestingly enough, we never find out what happened to Stheno and Ural, and considering that it was said they were immortal, who knows what happened to them? Now here's Vincent. I have tea with Medusa and her sisters, occasionally. It's not very good since it's made of swamp water, but hey, I try to be nice. And I don't have to worry about petrification since I'm kind of already made of stone, so, you know. So yeah, Medusa's a pretty nice girl. Her sisters, though, they can kind of get on the nerves after a while, not gonna lie. Now let's look at the card. You know, after so many portrayals that just make Gorgons look like regular women, but with green skin and snake hair, it's kind of refreshing to see a Gorgon depiction that actually makes them look ugly for once. Although this card still makes the error where it claims that to be petrified you have to make eye contact. As I said earlier, it was because the Gorgons were so ugly that just looking at them would kill you. But hey, props for remembering the wings. Almost no depiction remembers those. However, the biggest thing this card does, and something that genuinely ticks me off, is the back, where it describes Medusa's origin. It's based on the Ovid version, which, as I said earlier, is questionable due to his views. But, let me just read it here. Gorgons weren't always such ugly beasts. They were actually the daughters of a sea monster Ceto and her brother Phorcys. The daughters, Stheno, Euryale, and Medusa, had human form and were all beautiful. Medusa messed all that up by claiming she was more attractive than the goddess Athena and tried to charm Poseidon, god of the sea, in Athena's temple. This enraged the goddess, who took revenge by transforming Medusa and her sisters into Gorgons. Even worse, she stripped Medusa of her immortality, which meant she would eventually die. Okay, problem number 1. Since when does Athena care when people are more attractive than her? That's Aphrodite who cares about that kind of stuff. Secondly, and most importantly, this just straight up victim blames Medusa. It says right there that she tried to charm Poseidon, as in she was seducing him or something like that. Wow. Just wow. This is on the same level as people are going like, well, maybe you shouldn't have worn that dress, or, well, you were the one begging for it. That is scummy, and I hate the fact that this card is doing something like this. Because of that, I'm giving this card a 0 out of 10. I don't care how accurate it is. Just the fact they would do something like that is worthy of no points. Okay, let's just finish off with some pop culture. Medusa was in Clash of Titans, and its remake. She's a recurring boss in the Castlevania series. Sometimes you fight her whole body, and sometimes you just fight her floating disembodied head. Gorgons appear in Dungeons & Dragons, except here their species are called Medusas. And the creatures called Gorgons are more similar to a creature I'll be talking about in a few videos. Medusa is a major antagonist in the Kid Icarus series. Medusa appears in God of War. And so does her sister Euryale. And the Pokemon Tangela is based on Medusa. And that's all for this episode of Monsters of the Mind. Join us next time when we look at a flaming frog lizard. Bye!